All right, so today a U.S. citizen was killed without due process, and the American people, for the most part, I think, are cheering this. If I had to guess, I would say that you will see in the coming days polls taken, snapshot polls is what they'll call them, taken to support President Obama's killing of Anwar al-Awlaki. Awlaki. His name frustrates me. Um, and Ron Paul, to his credit, immediately came out and said that he thought it was not the best course of action, unwise, because unlike a lot of people, he can think beyond the emotion of the moment and look at how this type of action can threaten our liberties in the future. It's a clear threat and violation. You know, if you don't have a problem with it, then I guess you really just don't value your freedoms and liberties. I mean, we should all U.S. citizens should have a right to a trial. Furthermore, as Ron Paul was saying, we don't know if this guy's even killed anyone. You know, directly been involved with killing. There's one thing. There's what you say, and if you notice, the concept of free speech is. It's like it doesn't mean anything anymore, especially to the neoconservative and the pro-war right and left. Like Ahmadinejad, where he says, wipe Israel off the map. Well, that's still his freedom of speech. That's not the same thing as an action. He hasn't done it. Although that's not actually what he said. All he called for was a regime change in Israel to replace the government in Israel. And so whatever. But the point here is we're getting dangerously close to losing what it is that separates us from terrorists, what it is that supposedly separates us from Sharia law. And that is, if we don't follow the rule of law, then what is it we're defending? I don't want to defend our government. I want to defend and uphold the Constitution and our liberties that it protects. If this government is no longer representing the Constitution or defending it and the liberties that it protects, then what the hell are we doing? What are our soldiers really fighting for if it's not for the Constitution and the rule of law? In other words, what is America without the Constitution? And a lot of people like to say, "Oh, well, you're libertarian. You're an anarchist." In point of fact, really what we have today and the way Obama operates is closer to anarchy than what someone like a Ron Paul would advocate for, because he would advocate for a strict adherence to the Constitution, the constitutional principles, which means there may be things you want to do. There may be things you think we 100% should do, but because of the Constitution, it's best not to do them. And this is a prime example of it. Yeah, I'm sure we really want to kill that guy. I'm sure he was a really bad dude. But then it's like everyone keeps acting like, oh well, we know he was guilty. Well, fine, then have a court case, take him through court, and then kill him. Have him executed. Do it legally. Otherwise, I mean, am I supposed to be happy? Oh, great! Now the president can deem anyone not an American citizen. The whole process doesn't make any sense. How do you determine he's not an American citizen? I mean, I don't even understand the whole... I mean, where he left. Okay, well, a lot of people leave the country. Well, I mean, he had these writings, videos. He was sympathetic. Well, he has a freedom of speech. He can be sympathetic. You know, and so then it's like, well, what do you have to prove? And furthermore, don't prove it to me in a press conference. Do it in a court of law. And the fact that they won't or can't do it in a court of law tells me they don't have enough evidence. And if they don't have enough evidence, maybe they shouldn't be killing him. I mean, it kind of puts into question everything we've been doing. It's like even bin Laden. I'm like, why were people so afraid to have a trial for bin Laden? People go, oh, it would turn into a circus. No, that's just an excuse because you don't want to have a trial. You're afraid he'll get off, I guess. Well, if your evidence is that flimsy, then what are we really basing our hatred of him on? Or our illicit fear of, oh my God, he's such a boogeyman. And he probably would turn out to be a boogeyman. He was as bad as they said. But then it's like, well, then have the fucking trial and prove it. I mean, it's so frustrating, this whole situation. Same thing with Alaki. If he's such a bad guy, then have the fucking trial, execute his ass, and we can move on, do things legally, constitutionally. Let's not act like the terrorists. It's so frustrating. You know, and then people... We're in this bass-backward world where now it's almost as though Ron Paul is aiding and abetting terrorism or terrorists because he supports the 14th Amendment. I mean, it's pretty frustrating right now because I don't quite understand where to go from this point forward. When you start to really look at shit, the line between what is right and wrong, what is terrorism and what is not terrorism, to me, is much more complicated than people realize. There are acts of terror that would be considered terrorism. But what my question always is, as we, quote, prosecute this war on terror, is what do we do when the government becomes tyrannical or terrorizing? You know, right now there's probably thousands of people who are being taken into court and their lives are being dragged through the mud and ruined because they owe income tax debt. Do you think that maybe they don't view that as tyrannical? And if they don't pay it, what happens? Oh, you're going to go to jail. Okay, let's say you don't show up your court date. You avoid going to jail. They'll send cops. They'll come down. They'll kill you if they can't arrest you. They'll blow your house up. You know, whatever. Whatever may transpire. You don't know. Shoot your dogs. I mean, anything could happen. Especially if you dare protect yourself. So it's just a bad situation we're in. And I want to make it clear. I don't support America. I support the Constitution. Because I don't want to live in America without some protection of our liberties. Period. End of discussion. I'm sick of this blind support of this notion of the United States of America when we're not united in anything. If anything, we're united in tyranny. And I don't want to be a part of it anymore. I don't want my tax dollars going to supporting these fucking wars that will only promote more acts of terror against the United States. I don't want my tax dollars going to support more fucking bailouts to support people's failures. It's stupid. I want individual responsibility. I want to be able to keep what we earn. And I don't want to promote more acts of terror against the United States so we can strip more of our rights away with bullshit like the TSA. It's absurd. And so I'm willing to say that I do not support blindly the United States of America. I support us when we follow the Constitution, the rule of law, and try to promote liberty throughout, not just the country, but throughout the world. But you can't promote liberty while you're killing people and assassinating them abroad. Talking about how we're all talk on that. Whoa, we're for liberty. We're for the rule of law and justice for all. Bullshit. You walk up to someone, you put a bullet through their fucking head and say, you know what, you were guilty anyways. Well, that's not any different than terrorism when you think about it. But what can I say? It's what we're in. It's who we are now. It's not who I am, but unfortunately, that's where we're at. I hope it changes. I'm not too hopeful at this point, but I don't know. I don't know where we're at. You know, the the stock market's in a weird state right now. It's on the verge of something possibly, and our foreign policy is just it's completely out of control. And what's really happening here politically is President Obama does not have, he's so unpopular right now, that he's using foreign policy and murder through these drones in order to get popularity. He's actually trying to basically kill people without a trial so that who's next? I mean, hell, after what I just said in this video, I said I support the Constitution over the United States. So I guess that no longer means I'm a U.S. citizen. Hey, and guess what? I'm a threat to the government because I support the Constitution over the government because the government clearly doesn't support the Constitution. More importantly, the people itself don't even support the fucking Constitution. So if I support freedom and liberty, that makes me a terrorist in this system because the system doesn't want me. It thinks I'm deemed some sort of threat. So conceivably in the future, if we have some sort of economic collapse, fallout, and Obama's got police stationed all throughout the major cities, he's shutting communications down because there's a real threat. Terrorists might try to take advantage. Hackers are taking advantage of the world. And someone like me tries to speak out, and Ron Paul tries to speak out, well, he could just assassinate us. No, because what we're doing is un-American. And what they mean when they say un-American is they mean anti-government. Anti-big government. They're against the government's foreign policy. They're against government. Not Constitution, not freedom of speech, not liberty. Anti-government. That's what they're talking about. So, welcome to this 1984 George Orwell world we live in now. I guess we're just going to have to accept it. Because at this point, I don't know how it's going to change. I don't know what it's going to take to wake people up. Maybe this will. It looks like Ron Paul is kind of creating a little bit of a debate with what he said. Gary Johnson also came out against it, at least somewhat. Gary was a little more, panderer, I guess you could say, panderer in chief, but a little bit more even kill about it. But Ron Paul's more like, no, it doesn't seem like that. We need to do that. We could, if we know where he's at, try to work with the local, get him arrested or whatever. Figure something else out where you don't just bang kill the guy. Those drone attacks. But what can you say? I mean, you have one man like Ron Paul who's worried about the long-term effects of our foreign policy and whether or not our president can go around killing people, American citizens, without a trial. President Obama does not care about the Constitution. He does not care about what's right or wrong. Right now, he only cares about securing votes. So that's it. See ya. Hopefully. I don't know.